Hi, I'm reporting live from the practice room at MHS. It's a little weird, I know. We are going to this week do pretty much algebra review of rational expressions and equations. So you have your polynomial test next week, so you should be studying for that. But in the meantime, we will also start preparing for our next unit that will start after Thanksgiving. So in this screencast, we will review expressions and how to solve rational equations. For the first couple, we're just simplifying. So when I look at this problem, I'm just simplifying my fraction first. So how would you reduce the fraction 25 over 10 to lowest terms? Well, you look to see what number goes into 25 and 10. Well, they're both divisible by 5. So I'm going to divide both of those numbers by 5. That will leave me with 5 over 2. And then as far as my variables go, if you are dividing like bases, you keep the base, subtract the exponents. If you were to expand this out, p to the third power means you have p multiplied by itself 3 times. And p squared means that you have p being multiplied by itself twice. Well, if the same factor appears in the numerator and denominator, you can cancel it out. So here's another way of how you could come up with that answer. A common question that you would be asked and that you want to make sure you're confident with is the idea of domain. So a little bit of a review from that first week of school. If you're asked to find the domain, you would set the denominator equal to 0 and solve for that variable. So if I set 10p squared equal to 0 and solve for p cannot equal 0. And so if I were to plug in numbers, like I could not plug in 0 for p. Pretend that said p and not x. I'm not redoing it. All right, number 2, factoring comes up big. I warned you, factoring is huge. The first thing that you do when you factor anything is look for that GCF. So look at the numerator and the denominator. Can you find the greatest common factor? If you saw that you could pull out 8, 8's the biggest number that you could pull out. So if you said 2 or 4, you're right, but that's not the greatest common factor. Now, these are so fun because when you have factors that appear in the numerator and denominator, then you can cancel the factors. And that's going to leave me with a final answer of 8/9. If I was asked the domain of this expression, I would set the denominator equal to 0 and I'd solve for my variable. So if I set 9k plus 18 equal to 0 and solve for k, I'm going to get k equals -2. But in reality, that's what k cannot equal. Because if you were to plug in -2 in for k, you would be dividing by 2. So you cannot plug in -2 into this expression. I'm going to keep going for the first 4. So on number 3, can you factor this? Why, yes, you can. So you factor the numerator, you factor the denominator, and then you look for factors that appear in the numerator and the denominator. If you see a pair, you can cancel them out like you see I did. And so my final answer is r plus 2 over r plus 4. Now, a common error is students think they can cancel out the r. No, don't. You cannot do that. You cannot cancel individual terms. Please, don't ever do that. If I was asked the domain, I would take that denominator and set it equal to 0. So always go for that factored form. You already did the work, so look at that. And if you were to solve this, you would set each factor equal to 0 and solve for that variable. So if asked the domain, r cannot be -4 and r cannot be 3. Really important when you're finding the domain of rational expressions, you're always looking at the original denominator, the original one, not the reduced, the original. We'll see that a lot after Thanksgiving. The last one in the screencast. Ooh, we are dividing. Well, we are dividing fractions. So you're going to keep the first fraction, change it to multiplication, and flip that second fraction. You're going to see if you can factor. So if you have a GCF, pull it out. You can see I changed it to multiplication and then I flipped that second fraction while also looking for that GCF. Factors can cancel, and now technically you could have also simplified your numbers here. I often prefer to like condense it then simplify. That's just like personal preference. Just make sure that your answer is simplified all the way. So 4/18, you can keep going. And that's it.